I want to take a little time and to provide some measurement opportunity for learning on how to understand your centimorgan matches. In this case, my example is 23andMe. In a future one, I'll use some of the other tool sets, places where you can take your testing at, so that you can compare and contrast. In this case, we're going to use 23andMe. It offers a broader tool set of things that you can compare with, and that's why I like 23andMe. 23andMe does not have as big a pool of test takers as, say, Ancestry.com. Oftentimes people use 23andMe or they'll use Ancestry. I like to use both. Let's begin with a little background on myself and my personal goals. I've been a genealogy buff for over 30 years. Love this stuff. I took a DNA test about 2011 and realized there was a family mystery in my own family that needed to be solved. Now, everyone who might know the answer to this family mystery had taken their secrets to the grave. It took me 3 years of researching and watching videos and discovering that there was no easy way to learn how to do this. I felt like I was really building my own road to get to the information that I needed. After about 3 years, friends began asking me if I could help them solve their mysteries. And that's where search angel work really came to be in my life. Now, as of this writing, I've solved more than 80 mysteries for people. I continue to teach classes locally at my local historical society and genealogy society. I coach some folks and I solve a number of mysteries. But my real personal goal not only is to help others, but more importantly, teach others the techniques that I've learned so that they can help more people. I sure can't solve all the mysteries, but I think together we can solve more. Prerequisites to getting to the point where you can compare your centimorgans, how much DNA you have in common with somebody, and you have to take a DNA test. That's just how it is. I recommend starting with Ancestry.com. They've got the largest number of people in their database, and I also recommend using 23andMe. There are some places you can upload your raw data to. We're going to cover that in another presentation. But most importantly, document all your notes and know that everybody really doesn't know where they came from. Chromosomes, centimorgans, segments. It sounds so biological and confusing unless you're a biological scientist. But let's break it down a little bit. You've got 23 chromosomes that make up the DNA that is you. These are strands. And on these strands, you have centimorgans. And centimorgans are grouped together in segments. I'm sure there's somebody out there much smarter than me about all this biology stuff, but that's the way my brain works. These segments cluster together, and that is where you match another person. Sound complicated? Let's try to make it a little easier. Now, on 23andMe, you're able to see predicted relationships between people like you can in the other testing places. The subject, the person who took this 23andMe test, has a daughter, RS. And we know that because RS shares 50% of the DNA over 23 segments with our subject tester. The next person in line is Michael, followed by Sharon, followed by Rachel, Kaylee, and Thomas. But how are all these people related to each other? We're not really sure. Normally, I start with the first person on the list, especially if I'm working with an adoptee. But in this case, we know who that first person is, and the daughter cannot inherit anything that the daughter didn't get from each of the parents. So we're not going to start with that one. We're going to start with Michael and use Michael as an example of how to see how people are connected. In this case, our tester matches Michael, which is not showing up on your screen, and these are relatives that the two of these folks have in common. And when we look at this list, it's sort of sorted it, narrowed it for us. We know that Michael matches Sharon at about a second cousin level, but the tester actually has more DNA in common than Michael does. When you work your way down the list, you'll notice that Isan actually is a closer match to Michael than to our tester. Now, this could be through the recombination of DNA. DNA shifts its way down through the generations to us, but sometimes some groups are more sticky than other times, and it stays together, and we have to really work through the matches to see if that truly is a second cousin, a first cousin, that sort of thing. But it's an estimate of where you are connected. The reason why I'm using 23andMe for this explanation is because it shows you more than, say, Ancestry.com. Ancestry does not provide any sort of chromosome browser. There are some other ways you can look at chromosomes. It takes a bit more work. But 23andMe does show you your matches, and for the most part, you can look at where you share DNA with people. Not everyone shares this piece of information. Sometimes you'll only find out a % that you share with them. You need to connect with them, explain what you're looking for, and hopefully they'll respond to you. But we're going to look at the shared DNA chromosome browser. You will see as you match up to the person that you're trying to figure out, an opportunity to view this chromosome, and then underneath it, click on that link that says compare with more relatives. We're going to use the relatives that we know the test taker and the example Michael have in common. We went to the page, clicked on that link for compare more relatives. There's a search box on the right hand side of that screen, and we searched on the names. A list came up, we clicked on it, and it put those people, those test takers, in the comparison box. If you want to compare them to yourself, you can do that as well. But this is a quick and easy way that you can say, okay, how much does my match Michael have in common with these different people? And then you can play around with it. Okay, here's where the cool magic works in my mind. It seems that Michael and Sharon share about 131 centimorgans. There's a chart that I'm going to show you, and it gives you some estimates of how many centimorgans people share, what their likely matches are. So 131, probably a second cousin one time removed. That means Sharon might be a generation older or a generation younger than what Michael is. In this case, I suspect that Michael's parent and Sharon are second cousins, and Michael is one time removed based on what I believe is the estimated age of these people. I've worked on this case for a little while. Now, Michael and Rachel, the match that was a higher match to our test taker, only matches at 33 centimorgans. And you know what? That could be pretty far back, actually. It could be like a fourth cousin or so. I wouldn't put a lot of time into that. Michael and Kaylee match 85 centimorgans. You know, that could be a third cousin. Share 2 times great-grandparents. We have Michael and Lee way back, farther back, very likely, but through the magic of recombination, we don't know. But Michael and Isan, again, that could be a second cousin one time removed, Isan being a generation younger or older than Michael is at 144 centimorgans. So that's how Michael compares. You'll get the full list of where these people's DNA overlap. That's kind of cool. And then if we want to play around and see how these other people line up, we can change out that previous page. What I've done is I've copied off just a snippet of a table that I've amended a bit, but the source is listed here for you to use. If somebody shares about 12% or about 850 centimorgans, they could be a great-grandparent, a first cousin, maybe they're a half-uncle or half-aunt, half-niece, half-nephew relationship. Now, as you go down, you'll notice that the numbers change as you move down. I can't give you a good explanation of double second cousins. I'd actually have to see that somewhere in a chart. But you can tell that second cousins, about 212 centimorgans, we saw some of those. Second cousin once removed, about 106 centimorgans. That will give you an estimate of where to look. Now, what the heck is a second cousin one time removed? That's for another conversation. DNApainter.com is one of my absolute favorite tool sets. It has a tool that allows you to compare how much DNA you have in common with somebody. It's under Tools, Shared Centimorgan Tool. In this case, I used one of the matches between Michael and Isan. Isan has a rather unusual name than the rest of the folks, so I'm thinking we might be able to figure him out through social media, through other kinds of places, online research, basic gumshoe research. So at any rate, the amount shared between the two men is 144 centimorgans. At 144 centimorgans, the highest likelihood is that it could be a half-second cousin, a second cousin one time removed, and it goes on and gives you more options of what is likely to be the connection between these two test takers. If you only know the percent of DNA that you share with someone else on 23andMe, you can click on the green or enter percent that is on underneath the Centimorgan tool on that same page, and you can enter the percent that you share with another person to get the calculated centimorgans and again the relationships. So DNA Painter is a third-party tool. You could use it with any of the other places that you can test at, but it really, to me, it gives me more options. So I'm not looking at just the chart. I look at the chart, but I also look at DNA Painter. In this little quick video, I've tried to explain how to understand your centimorgan amounts and how that relates to your matches. As a reminder, your DNA is on 23 chromosomes. Each of us are composed of 23 chromosomes. The amount of DNA you share with another person is measured in centimorgans. You'll see that as a little c, capital M. The centimorgan amount that you share with another individual, it's a numeric value, is shared, and that is an indicator of how you line up with other people. Now, to work through all this, my recommendation, step 1, group your matches together. If you're working in 23andMe, compare them using that link under that chromosome graphic so that you can compare your match to other people to get a better feel for how they line up. If you are trying to figure this out, even though 23andMe offers up a suggestion on where somebody might line up, I think it's a good idea to use the table on the ISOG wiki, which is about DNA. It's called Autosomal DNA Statistics, or one of my absolute favorite tool sets is DNA Painter. That will give you a broad spectrum of possibilities of where people might lie and how they connect to you into your lineage and into your chart. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll continue to make these videos as your requests come in. to help you better understand things.